Yes, people, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another live stream. And tomorrow night, it is the big one. Chelsea taking on Man United at Stamford Bridge, 5:30 kickoff, 4th versus 1 point separating the two. So Chelsea obviously in 6 games, dropping 2 points last time out. Man United form under Eric Ten Hag after a difficult season, losing their first 2 games. There's a lot to play for. There is the Ronaldo story surrounding Man United. Chelsea, obviously, in half-decent form as well. Will Raheem Sterling finally score against Man United at the 24th attempt? Never scored against them. Tomorrow would be as good a time as any. There's plenty to discuss. As always, delighted to be joined by Jem. Bro, thanks for joining me, mate. Absolute pleasure, as always. Chelsea not beating Man United in the Premier League. 5th of November, 2007, 1-0 win with Alvaro Morata getting the decisive goal. It's been 2 years, mate, since we've been a lot in the league. I don't know what happens to us, but we just can't. I don't know what it is. What do you think it is why we struggle to beat them in the league?
We've had a couple of refereeing decisions go against us, haven't we, in the past, where they should have been down to 10 men and whatever else. But, you know, I don't know. I wouldn't say they're a bogey team. I think they are there for the taking. I think when you look at the games at Old Trafford, even at Old Trafford where we drew as well, I think we've actually played quite well. Been quite unlucky not to walk away with 3 points in some of them games, you know. But I just, you know, it will be a challenge because Man United, you know, are on a bit of form now. You know, they won the game against Spurs, and they're obviously going to be a bit pumped for this one. And so for me, it's just about Chelsea. For me, it's about how I ain't looking at them too much. I just look at us and I think to myself, well, if we can play anywhere to the level that I know that we can play. And I have seen in early doors under Potter, not the last 2 games, because I think we've been pretty poor, moving the ball quickly, playing. I think, again, it's all about playing the right players as well and formation, which is going to be the big question, because it's hard to really understand whether we're confident or not until we see the lineup, right? It's always the case with Chelsea because you just don't know what we're going to do you? So it's going to be a good game. I expect it to be quite challenging. I think there will be some cards been thrown around here and there. Who knows? Maybe a red card as well. You don't know in these type of games. So let's see.
Yeah, we'll see, mate. I mean, you touched on it there. Last 2 games to not losing, getting 4 points from 6, 2 games, Villa and Brentford. The performances haven't been that great, but, you know, as long as you're picking up, that's the most important thing. But, mate, have you been concerned that kind of the performances, the first 2 without James, and we've kind of seen the performance level of the team drop off quite a lot. And I don't think it's a coincidence to see that as soon as James comes out the side, we're so reliant on him for so much, not just defensively, but getting forward, putting balls into the box. I mean, Loftus-Cheek Wednesday night, you know, he did okay, but you could tell when he got into those crossing positions, he just wasn't getting the ball in the box. He just doesn't see James as in that position. Do you think, how much of a concern is it for you the performances without Reece James have not been good? The games are going to get tougher now. It's Saturday, coming up. We've got City in the Cup. We've got difficult Champions League games to negotiate. It's a bit worrying, isn't it?
It is a bit worrying, mate. I mean, do you know what it is? It's one of them things of like, I know we kind of addressed some of the issues in the summer window, but I just knew that there was so many other areas that we needed to address that it was impossible for us to do that in the one. And keeping Reece James fit throughout the season was always going to be the challenge, right? Because we knew that we didn't have the backup or the backup that can come in and provide the level of performances that he does in the team, you know. And the thing with it is when he goes and he's not available, the balance of the squad just looks everywhere, and we lack creativity as he is, and he's one of our main creators, so that's gone. And then we rely heavily on the midfield, which I think struggle to create anyway. And then you're looking at Chilwell and hoping that he can, you know, add to his creative, and he ain't really been firing for me in the last couple of games as well. We just basically we just look unbalanced. That's what the issue is, and that's why I don't think we're really going to see the best of what Potter wants to do with this team, because I don't think even though we've got the numbers, we have like the numbers in terms on the bench of players available compared to what Tuchel had last year. But it's just like, for me, it's the quality that comes in, and it's then when that quality comes in, it's how do they like match compared to like the main 11s that start. So if one of them are out, like Reece James, how do we then include that person in that position and they perform near to the level that maybe he can do? And I don't think we actually have that, and that's why I think we suffer a lot, mate. I do, and I think we will suffer for the rest of the season in other areas with it as well, along with some of the other areas like midfield and the lack of creativity we have in the team and stuff like that. So it's hard one.
Even midfield as well, as you say, we're one injury away from having massive problems there. You know, we've got no Kante. The only three we've got are Jorginho, Kovacic, and Ruben. One injury to any of those three. We know that Kovacic is quite injury prone. We're really struggling big time in the mid area. So again, it's something that needs to be looked at. I agree about the Reece James thing. It's the one area of the squad where there's no one even close to that level. We're not asking to have a backup as good as Reece James. I mean, that would be great, but you know, there's no one even close to the level, and the drop off is big. I mean, overall, mate, what have you made of kind of Graham Potter's start so far? Because he's got a few games under his belt now. You know, we've had 5 wins on the spin. What do you reckon of the form so far? Do you like sort of the subtle changes that Potter's been making to the side? I feel in attack a bit better as well, moving the ball a bit quicker against Brentford. It wasn't great against Brentford, wasn't great, but Wolves game looked promising as well. Are you with what he's doing so far?
I think it's hard to say that I can hear you bits and bobs. I'm getting what you're saying, but you are very crackly and
hopefully I can sort that out. I'll try to sort that out.
See anything at the moment. Like it's the one thing I would say that we can say that we've seen more is that we are creating more. I think we are creating more under him. I don't think we've seen enough of what he wants to do yet, and I don't. It's not purely his fault. I just think it's the lack of certain personnel that we need, or profile of players that we need to maybe help enhance that and be more consistent with it. I just think through this season, what he's going to have to do, a bit like what Thomas Tuchel did, is maybe just get the best out of what he has in terms of the players and try and get them to adapt to maybe what he wants to do to a degree. But you know, it's never going to be to the level that I think that he wants it to be at this rate. So it's about just getting the wins, playing some decent football, getting him to kind of understand where it is that he wants to go moving forward in terms of playing style and system. And then, you know, and just addressing the areas that we need to address to strengthen as well, you know. So, you know, it's good to see what Potter's done up to this point. Like, you know, no, he's not lost a game. He's won 5 games. He's got 2 draws. He's not lost one. You know, we could say we might have been a little bit lucky the last 2 games due to, granted, Kepa kept us in both of them. But I don't know is the answer to that. It's only 10 games, and it's very hard to say I've seen much other than what I can say is that we are creating more. We have been creating more in theory, you know? Yeah.
The big plus is that we are looking a bit more training in the third. We seem to move the ball. We seem to be making more passes. There seems to be more players available in that third, which is something that we've not been used to at the back. Tuchel's reign, there seems to be more options there, moving the ball quicker, as I said. So yeah, there are early promising signs there. The form of Aubameyang's decent. Obviously, Sterling's dropped off a bit, but players are still having an impact. But this, I think, is. I know we thought the Milan games would be a big test. Ultimately, they turned out not to be. But I think this is perhaps Potter's first real big test. I know you've had some tricky away games in the Premier League, but I think this is the first real big test. A big team coming to Stamford Bridge. And obviously, you know, home form wasn't good last season, particularly against the big sides as well. We did lose a few games, dropped a couple of points here and there. So tomorrow really is a big one. I mean, Jen, would you say, I know we always say that every game's must win, but this is vital for us not to lose this, isn't it? In terms of the kind of, I know it's early days of the race for the top 4, kind of a psychological mark that could be laying down, building momentum. You know, we want as many points on the board and then run up to the World Cup. So I'll run after the, you know, we've got to go to the Emirates, you've got to get City twice, Liverpool twice, you've got to go to Spurs. It's not easy.
No, this run up to the World Cup's going to be a big challenge for Chelsea, and where we stand at the moment and where we find ourselves in terms of position on the table, I think we've not done too bad. We've done it quietly as well. We've just gone about our business, you know, and just accumulating points, and that's a good thing, you know. It's a good thing, but there are bigger challenges to come, and you know we have got Arsenal to play. I think City in between that, you know, Newcastle. There's a couple of games there that they're going to test this team, and we have no Reece James. And I think Graham Potter's in a position where he's got to try and work out that position and how we can get through it without him. You know, many challenges to come, mate, is all I'd say. And it's just going to be interesting to see how Potter utilises and rotates the squad, right? Because we saw it against Brentford. I think he made too many changes, if in my honest opinion. And on top of that, I think he was a little bit late with his substitutions as well, and some other bits. But you know, it's good to rotate. Don't get me wrong, but I think when you go into Premier League games, you always try and start your best team. And once you do maybe go ahead 1 or 2, then rotate with the bench and maybe bring them off on 56 minutes rather than do it the other way around. And I know it's hard to say that when we're playing Champions League football and other bits and bobs, and he's going to have to rest others. But it's I think he's got a challenging job in like balancing the system and like getting results, especially when we're playing so many games. You know, it's going to be hard.
I mean, I personally feel that he's used the squad pretty well in terms of rotation. I know Wolves made 7 changes. Everyone was up and up before the game kicked off. Like, oh my God, why have we made so many changes? This is going to be a disaster. And it worked out really well. And it was one of our best performances of the season. I felt, again, the Brentford game, yeah, there were a few changes. I felt, we had to give Thiago Silva a rest at some point, and you'd rather not have him against Brentford, be fresh for United, because out of the 2 games, that is the bigger game. And I think Brentford point is only a point if we then go and beat Man United tomorrow. Then it becomes, that wasn't a great result. So there's riding on this. I think he's used. I think his use of the bench has been really good as well. I like it that he's not afraid to wait to use subs. If he sees something needs changing at half time, he'll change things at half time, he'll change things before the hour mark. I know sometimes you can always want subs a bit quicker, and perhaps in certain instances they should have come a bit quicker. But I think players have made an impact from the bench as well. I think he's doing. I know it's very still, but I think he's made a positive. He looks good with what he's doing. He speaks well. I just wanted to talk to a couple players that come off the bench. We spent big money on for someone with such little experience. Obviously, last year's contract at Aston Villa, he could rise to £20 million. We were under the impression that we were going to see him quite a lot in the first team. Tuchel, when we signed him, saying he was going to, he was ready to start in the first team from the off. Never looked like using him. Potter's now used him a couple of times. Obviously, didn't get too much time against Wolves, but I thought he had a big impact when he came on against Brentford. I thought it was really positive. He kind of reminded me a little bit of Loftus-Cheek in the terms of the way he uses his body, his physicality, what he's like on the ball. He had a couple of opportunities as well. Have you been impressed with what you've seen of him? I know it's not much, and I think he could have a role to play in this squad, particularly from the bench.
Yes, in terms of what we saw from him in Brentford, I agree with you in terms of the Ruben physicality, the movement, and whatever. I actually think I think he could be more technical than Ruben. Looking at him, like with the ball at his feet, I think Ruben's. Yeah. I mean, I can see it. Don't get me wrong. I thought what was impressive with him is he's always looking forward, and he's got the physicality and he's got the build to sort of drive through the midfield, and he looks confident, as well with the ball at his feet. I like the look of him, and it's good to have young players like that in the squad around the experienced player, because they're going to need, it's learning from the best is invaluable. Do you know what I mean? Like having that experience around you and learning from these others, and hopefully potentially given the opportunity to get in the team and do your thing, is at a later stage is key for a lot of Chelsea youngsters, because they don't get to see that at this club. A lot of the times it's like they get one opportunity, they don't kind of take it and they disappear. But with Carney, I thought he played quite well, and I think Graham Potter will look at some of the youngsters in bringing them through. I do think that's something that Graham Potter, I think, will try and do with this with Chelsea moving forward. I think that maybe might be what Bowley wants, the owners want, and why we spend the money we did. Like you said, 20 million and the youngster. You don't buy a player like that not to have some sort of ambitions with him. Do you know what I mean? Or use him in a certain way. So I think he could be one for the future for Chelsea. But a good performance from him. There's some little bits and bobs in his game where like he looks down a bit too much and doesn't release the ball sometimes a little bit too quick, I thought, but nothing massive, like massive red flags or anything like that. I think it was all good.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, he's going to be used and he will be useful. Yeah, as you say, there's still a few deficiencies in his game, as you'd expect from a young player. But another young player that I wanted to briefly touch on is Trevor Chalobah. He's back in this. Obviously, unfortunately, because of Wesley's up that injury, he's so good in the games that he's played. Coming for Barner, it looks really impressive. I thought Wednesday night it was really good against Brentford. He put a foot wrong since he's coming back into the side, and I felt he was pretty harshly treated in terms of obviously had a disappointing pre-season. Was not in the side at all at the start of the season. He was behind Azpilicueta in the pecking order under Tuchel to begin with. But how impressed have you been with his kind of recovery and the fact that he's back in contention, he's back in the team? He's going to be really important for us this season. I know, like you don't want Fofana to be injured. You want to see him playing, but as a player, sometimes someone else getting injured in your position is the opening you need, and he's taking it with both hands, and he's going to be really important for us.
100%. I didn't really get the slander of Trevor Chalobah last year, especially when he made the mistakes that he did. I think people forget that this is a player that came out of nowhere, that Thomas Tuchel brought in and started so well, and then had a little bit of a blip, got benched. I think that benching kind of helped a bit in terms of his experience and learning and stuff like that. I think like it was more of a learning curve for him to watch and learn and you know what I mean. And he if Fofana gets injured, he comes in this season, and I just think he's been amazing. I thought he was man of the match last game round. I've said this to everyone before. I thought I had question marks around the physicality of dealing with Ivan Toney and the other two up front. That was the thing that worried me in terms of having to deal with physical players, and he passed it with flying colours, you know. And what I've noticed with him more is that he seems to read the danger a lot better. As before, he was kind of like he'd commit without understanding what's surrounding him. Well, now I watch him and he just seems to, you know, like Thiago Silva, he always does things neatly and calmly, and he knows what's around him, what's going on, if there's a danger. Like you can tell he's slowly sort of picking bits from these guys, and that's great. That's what he's doing with Koulibaly and Silva. And there's been moments where danger's there, and he kind of just reads it a step ahead, and he kind of just deals with it quite comfortably. And it's like, didn't do that, like, you know, mid last season. He'd make a rash challenge or not understand it, like, you know what I mean? Like his role a bit, and it's like he's learned the position better, and he's just gaining from that. And I think he's valuable. I think he's so valuable, and I don't get this whole thing of that he's not good for Chelsea and we should let him go. I'm so glad he didn't go in the summer, because there was talks about him going on loan or something. I'm glad he stayed.
Would have been stuffed now. We'd have big problems. We would have massive issues if we'd done that. So it just goes to show, you got to keep faith in these young players. And I'm delighted that, I've said it before, for some of these players like Gallagher, like Chalobah, Broja as well, Graham Potter coming in is probably the best thing for them, because it's a manager that appreciates young players, understands young players, will give young players opportunities. I'm not saying that giving them chances he would have done, but Potter's going to be more patient with them and develop, I feel, in a better way in careers than perhaps Tuchel would have done. So I think it's really positive Potter coming in for these youngsters. Before we move a bit more onto the United game, what did you make of Broja on Wednesday night? He got his first start. I think people have been calling him for him to get a start, get more opportunities. I felt he did okay. I didn't realize how rapid he was. I didn't realize he was that quick. I felt, he's a physical presence, he's a bit powerful, much to feed on. What did you make of him? Because it's the first time we've seen him from, and I felt he was okay. Excited by what you see by him? Do you think there's potential for him to be decent for us?
Yeah, I like Bro. I always have, and I've been screaming for him to get minutes, and he got minutes against Brentford. And I think we didn't have the greatest 45 minutes, but then you got to think about the players that he was up front with, and I don't think he's even played any minutes with them, to be honest. So It's like, there's a lot of like, with that game, the good parts of Broja was when Broja made things happen himself. If that makes sense. It wasn't more of like everyone's playing well in the team, the transitions were moving forward, and we could like see him getting involved a lot, and we were control of the game. The first half, we wasn't in control of that game. We struggled, I thought, to even get control of Brentford. But balls over the top. I couldn't believe how quick he was. Honestly, some of the speeds that I was seeing him hit, flopping the guys on the floor with his strength, getting back on his. The only thing I would say about him, and again, he's 21 years old, and I think in time it will come, is that like you see that little image. I don't know if you see it on Twitter of like him, Mason Mount, right next to him on his own, like waiting down, and his head's down, and he'd done that a couple of times when he got in that position where if he looked up for a quick second, he would have seen that player was available. And I think that's the one thing that he needs to learn. But I do think he was trying to over-impress a little bit as well, because, I don't blame him. This is his big opportunity, isn't it, to actually get in and start and prove a point. And I actually just think he's very useful. I really do. He's physical, he's strong, he's quick. He can score goals. I'm telling you now, he will score goals. Like there's no doubt about him scoring goals. I think he will do that. I just want to make sure that he gets continuous minutes so that we can see his development in the first team. Do you know what I mean? And rather than just come on like the other day when we think it was, I can't remember who it was, but he came on for like 5 minutes.
Already come on for 2 minutes, didn't they?
Like why do that to him? Do you know what I mean? Like we were winning 2-0 at Villa. You could have took him off you could have took Sterling off on the 70th minute and put him on for 20. Do you know what I mean? Like give him a run at least. But yeah, It's all good, mate. All
Yeah,
good to see.
that's. I think that's the one thing. It's great getting opportunities, but you don't see them. Like, I'm not expecting Broja to start Saturday or start every game, but you see him go from starting to then reverting back to getting 5 minutes against United. You want to see them get at least 15, 20 minutes minimum so it can continue to help their development. But back to the game tomorrow, mate. Where do you feel this one's going to be won and lost? Because we know United are kind of, they'll sit back, they'll look to play on the counter attack. For the pace of Anthony, Rashford. I don't know if Martial's fit or not. Sancho as well. They've got dangerous players, and there's a lot of pace in that team, and you've got to be careful not to get caught too high up the pitch. Do you see that being the biggest issue, that their pace on the attack with those players? I think Anthony, a good player, he's made a big impact. Again, is one that seems to always score against us. Do you think that's their biggest threat, is their pace on the counter attack?
I think there's two things that we've got to be careful of. I think it's the pace on the counter, which I think can be a problem to a degree, because I know that I think they're quite a good countering team. I also think it's not losing the midfield battle as well, because they will have Casemiro and Fred in there, who played very well against Spurs last game round. So, it's hard because, again, I don't know what midfield we're going to play. We don't know what midfield we're going to play. And that's the thing. It's like, what's it going to be? Jorginho Kovacic? Is it going to be Ruben? I think Ruben should be there, but then is Ruben going to be played as a wing back, or is Ashley going to go there?
Yeah.
Like, you see what I mean? Like, it's like, I don't know, because we all have our own opinion of how we want Chelsea to be set up with Reece James out, right? And how we think we can be successful. It's just that I'm not too sure what Potter's going to do. And I know that we're going to switch formations throughout the game. It will be a 3, I think, at the back, and it might go into a 4 and then a 5 at the back with the wing backs coming back in. But you have to be careful of their pace up front. I think Rashford's starting to look a little bit dangerous again. Anthony's another one that looks quite hot. And then then it's about not losing the midfield to Casemiro and Fred, who are looking quite, they're going to be in there just to break things down and stop Mount and Sterling or whoever getting the ball in them pockets and stuff. And I just think it's about us being sort of productive, but also at the same time, I think Kovacic, I really want Kovacic to play, but I really want him to be on form, because an on-form Kovacic in this game, I think, could actually be the difference in terms of breaking the lines and breaking through their midfield. I think we need someone that can beat the midfield and then, allow the forwards to run into the pocket spaces and play the balls in. But, that's the only real thing I think it is for me. But
yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fascinating how we set up. I might as well get into that now. Bring it live on screen. I mean, as you touched on, I personally think it will be a back 5 or whatever, but we'll see it kind of switch multiple during the game like we usually do. Do you think we'll set up with the 3 again? Because I've been thinking about this today. You could go with the 4, but then who do you partner Silva with? Because you think, well, Chalobah doesn't deserve to be dropped, and neither does Koulibaly, really. So, but then you've got the issue of, if you go with a 4, then Ruben does play in midfield and you play Azpilicueta at right back. I mean, would you be inclined to stick with a 3?
I think if we play a 4, I think we are setting ourselves up for a loss. I'll be honest with you. I think we'll struggle to get out with the 4. I don't like the way we build up with a 4. I don't think we still have the right set of players to do it. I think it's different when we're doing it in between the game. Like we're in a 3 and then we go to a 4.
Yeah.
We've got the ball. I don't mind that, but I just don't like us starting in a 4. So for me, I would play 3. And I think the 3 that have been solid and why we've kept clean sheets along with Kepa is Silva, Chalobah and Koulibaly. They look comfortable as a 3 at the moment. Why change it? And for me, if we're going to struggle to score in this game, then this at least makes sure that we're solid at the back. Do you know what I mean? So they're the 3.
100%. Well, this is Klep's 5 sheets in a row?
5.
So, it's 5 in a row in all comps. It's impressive. What have you heard of his kind of, what you might say as a bit of a renaissance? Obviously, he came in, he played the first 2 games of Potter because Mendy wasn't fit, and he's not looked back from there. I mean, 2 good, fantastic against Villa, kept us in the game against Brentford. Oh, he's not going to play like that in a single game, but he looks full of now, and he looks like the kid actually paid all that.
He does, but then it's still early for me, mate. I'll be honest
Yeah,
with you. Like, the only thing I would say in regards to Kepa is he deserves to be in the goal. He has no reason. There's no reason why he deserves to be dropped. He's kept us in his Villa game more than the Brentford game for me. I think he had some of the saves in the Brentford game. I expect him or Mendy to make, to be honest. But he hasn't given us any reason or Potter any reason to bring Mendy in. However, I do think that we've seen a level of Mendy which we haven't seen a level in terms of Kepa, if that makes sense, in terms of the consistency and how far we got with him and how good he got at in the goal. So hopefully Kepa can do the same, because if he does, then we benefit, right? We're winning games and he's keeping clean sheets. But if he doesn't and he has that Kepa disaster moments again, then I think Mendy will be looking at that and going, "This is my time." I really do.
Yeah, I think so. We know he's got it in him. And I think it only benefits Chelsea, Kepa playing well. Two goalkeepers that are basically number ones, which they've been blessed with that down the years. Czech, Petra, Kudachini, and Czech. If you go back further, so we're having decent goalkeepers at the club. We've got the young lad Slanina as well, who looks pretty impressive. But yeah, I'd agree. The keeper and those three centre back, that's our best. That's the best we've got available to us, and it would make no sense to not go with anything other than that. This is where it gets a little bit more tricky. Right wing back. I mean, I'm not going to play Aspilicueta there, so I suppose you have to play Loftus-Cheek there. Do you think Loftus-Cheek can cope defensively, perhaps up against someone like Antony running at him or Rashford running at him? Do you think he's going to struggle with that?
I think he's going to play Aspilicueta. I'll be honest with
you. Yeah,
I do. I think the reason I'll tell you why he's going to do that. I think he's going to do that for what you just said there in terms of doubling up on whoever it is down that wing. I think he's gonna want to be more. I think he's gonna want us to be secure at the back, but at the same time, I think it is with Aspie. Like, we know that he's not great in that position, but he kind of can do it a little bit. Like he didn't have a bad game. Remember that game at home where he actually played really well in that position?
Yeah, that was against Wolves. He was actually decent against Wolves. I mean, he wasn't even that bad against Brentford. He wasn't awful.
It's weird. It's weird, isn't it? Like,
he's kind of
you just don't know what you're going to get. Yeah, you just don't know what you're going to get with him, do you? Like, that's the problem. It's like, what are you going to get from him playing in that role? And that's the uncertainty. But at the same time, I don't like really seeing Ruben there, to be honest. I'll be honest with you.
It's not great.
No, but at the same time, he's been one of the most consistent performers in the midfield, and he's looked good in there for me. So I'd rather have players that are playing well in their positions, and even if it ain't Aspie's position, at least we know can kind of do it. Unless you look at a Sterling or a Pulisic, and I don't even want to do that. So it's like
that looks terrible. The last few times we've done that, that's just looked for. I mean, we did it at Villa. Completely out of sorts. It just doesn't. He wasn't signed to play as a
unless
wing back.
Carnes out there. What about Carney? You think he could do a job out there?
Well, he probably could. That would be a massive call to do that.
Actually could do the job, Charlie. I think Conor Gallagher could play there. You know that, just because of his energy.
He could. Yeah, he's got a lot of energy. Again, the only thing I'd worry about, and the same with Ruben, is defensively. I think he could end up being a bit rash. But I mean, do you know what? Because I do want to see Ruben in the midfield, so I probably would go with Aspilicueta here. And I just think he might go with, perhaps he may well go with a bit more experience.
Yeah, I agree.
More defensive solidity in terms of. I think it's a bit more of a safety first approach going with Aspie. But you want to keep
a little bit more
in the game.
It's a little bit more balanced in terms of like he can kind of do a job there, if that makes sense. Not a great job, but he can do something there.
Yeah, he can do something. I mean, I wouldn't. It's not ideal, but I think in the hand we've got at the moment, this is the preferable way of doing it. So I think Ruben will be much better impact in the midfield than on the right. And so, I mean, I'd go with Aspie. Left-hand side, we've got another sort of a decision to be made. Chilwell obviously left out the squad completely on Wednesday night, rested. Cucurella, who had a poor game against Villa, wasn't great against Brentford either. He was subbed at around the hour. Who do you go with here? Chile or Cucurella? You go Chilwell.
Yeah.
What have you thought of Cucurella the last few games? He's got off a bit, hasn't he?
A little bit, I felt like with Cucurella, he's more progressive than Chilwell. I think Chilwell holds on to the ball too long, to be honest, on transitions. I think he doesn't really. However, I think Chilwell will be. I think in this game, if you're going to play Aspilicueta on that wing, then you need something. You need something from the other side. And I just think Chilwell's better going forward than Cucurella, and I think he's more of a threat from that side. You know, like arriving in the box and stuff like that. I think he's got more of a goal threat about him if we need someone round the back and stuff. So I think Chilwell would be better in terms of the going forward side. Defensively, I think they're both probably the same, if I'm my honest opinion, in terms of like
not much in it.
Nah. So it's what can we get from him going forward? And if we ain't going to get much from Aspie, which I don't think we will, then at least if we get
a lot of outlet.
Yeah, we need a lot of outlets. So maybe we try and throw Chilwell and use that side to be more creative. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that Chilwell wasn't in the squad at all on Wednesday night probably makes that. From we've been like, you know, we were not going to use you at all, but make sure you're ready for me on Saturday. So I think it makes sense for Chilwell to start, and I think given it started the last games and he's not been great, I think it would make sense to cover him and just get to this 4-3-3. Aspie, Silva, Koulibaly, Cucurella. You could go with it. I don't know. I just think I'd rather have 3 centre backs just to cover off that pace. If I'm being perfectly honest,
not against the top 60 for me.
Yeah, no, I would agree, mate. Then I presume who's rested? Do you go Kovacic and Ruben, or do you think Jorginho? I think Cover and Ruben seems like the best combination in there.
I would definitely do Cover and Ruben, and I'll just let Ruben sit a little bit deeper out of the two, which he's been doing, and he's been quite consistent in doing it, to be fair to him. I actually criticised him for playing there because I don't feel that's his position. I still don't think it is, but I've seen a better Ruben this season in this position than I did last season, if that makes sense. He just seems to be more understanding about it, you know? So, I don't know.
He's added a lot more consistency to his game. I felt under Tuchel, you know, you'd see a really good game from Ruben. Yeah, this is it. He's going to push on now. He's going to be consistent. And then the couple of games, his level drop off. But I think now, you know, for a good run of games now, he's starting. He's playing the majority of the minutes, and he's actually delivering a consistent level of performance that we haven't really seen from him so far. But I think, you know, the way that he's kind of rebuilt his Chelsea career has been really good, and it's an example to anyone, you know, not so long ago on loan at Fulham in a relegated side, not starting every week, coming back from that Achilles injury when he was in the best form of his career under Sarri. You know, I think he's done really well, and fair play to him. And I think he probably is he's one of our most important midfield players at the moment. I know we ain't got many, but he is really important. So I think I'd fully just start him alongside Kovacic. I think that's got a nice balance to it as well. There's a lot of physicality in there. There's a lot of energy in there as well. And then, you know, if we need to switch things up, if we need to just slow the game down, see a game out, if we're in a winning position, Jorginho's the perfect guy and just, you know, pull the life out of the game. I think that. I mean, moving into the front. This is where it gets a bit more difficult. You know, obviously Mason Mount is going to be on the team. We've got to start with getting your thoughts on Kai Havertz. For me, he shouldn't be starting at all. I know we've all spent a lot of time talking about Kai, but it was poor against Villa where he was hooked at half time. He wasn't great against Brentford either. He's not, as far as I'm concerned, you know, he's not part of Chelsea's best 11. It's for me, it's as simple as that. He's just not doing enough on the pitch. Where are you with Havertz at the moment in Chelsea? Because it's happening right now. It's happening.
He's got this season. That's as clear as that for me. Some people think I'm a Havertz protector and whatever. The difference with me is I just don't slander him like others. You know, I ain't got time to sit there and slander and moan about him and whatever. For me, when people moan about his ability and they say, well, he's got no ability. I look at it and I'm just like, well, that ain't really true. We've kind of seen what he can do in games. All right, it was in small patches, but he can do it. But the issue with Havertz is, for me, the biggest issue with him is just his consistency. That is the biggest issue with him. But then I look at all the other forwards and I'm like, who else is really consistent? You know, like, everyone seems to be, you know, since I've said this the other day, since Eden Hazard, what forwards come in and been consistent at Chelsea?
No one.
There's no one. So, like, when we moan at Havertz, we moan at Mount, and we moan at Pulisic, and we moan at Ziyech about them being shit, or not doing well, this, that, and the other, and not to play them. Who is it that we're bringing in for them? Because you know, they can have a good game or two, and then it seems that they all have the same common illness in a way, where they just don't turn up, and then it goes sour, and it doesn't look well, and that's what annoys me about it. They don't make it easy for us as fans to be like, he's been consistent for the last 10 games. You know, he's had 1-2 bad games, drop him for a bit, throw him. Do you know what I mean? It's always like we have this inconsistency. But however, Kai Havertz was not good enough at Brentford. When we're talking about Kai Havertz, and for me, you're right. You know, the little basic things which I think he's usually good at with his, and I'm talking about his touch. I'm talking about even his movement, even his dedication to get around the pitch and stuff. Like, even though he is running here and there, I don't feel he's doing, you know, like last season under Tuchel, he weren't scoring goals, but he was still effective in a way because he was just getting involved, and like doing his thing, and he was helping the team. And I think I don't think it's a Billy thing. I think it's a mental thing at the moment with him.
Yeah.
I think something's not right when I look at him at the moment. And you're right. If it's not right and he can't get it right at the moment, then he can't be in the team because we need to win points, you know. So maybe benching him may help that. I don't know. Maybe putting him on the bench for a couple of games and letting him sit there and watch others. And hopefully people like Pulisic come in, take the chance.
Yeah.
I think Pulisic deserves a run now. I do. I think Pulisic should come in and play, you know, and let's see.
I mean,
you know, I don't
really
see him very confident about it. You know, I'm not highly confident about whoever comes in and plays, really. I ain't.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, we know the attacking play has improved a little bit, but at the end of the day, we're still in a situation where you can't really rely on any of those forward players to deliver on a consistent basis. You just can't. You know, Aubameyang shown in games that if you get chances for him, he will score, but you can't rely on anyone to constantly be hitting the back of the net or influencing games in a positive way at the top of the pitch week in, week out.
We haven't got it.
We still don't. We haven't got it. I mean, there's a few options on this right hand side. I mean, obviously it can switch around. It can be fluid, interchangeable. I mean, do you put Mason Mount in? Mount's obviously going to start. So, I mean, you would imagine he probably. I mean, he could obviously. I mean, it's set up as a right here, but it could easily become out here, and then it could become a bit more of a sort of top or someone playing off of Aubameyang. I mean, Mount's a shit this game, isn't it? We saw him come off to get him a bit of rest. Yeah. Definitely plays. I mean, his form's picked up as well. I thought it was very good against Villa. Not so good against Brentford, but he starts this game. It's so obvious. But I mean, what do you think of the rest of them? Because obviously, you know, there's shouts of Pulisic. Sterling again is obviously going to start this game, but do you think he shouldn't, mate? You be on the bench?
I don't think we've been. I think we've been very quiet. All of us have been very quiet on Sterling recently. I haven't. I've noticed it. He's not been good. He's not even. You was at Villa. You was at Villa with me.
Yeah.
How bad was he that game? I mean, can you hear the people shouting about him just moving? He was just walking everywhere. Even when he got moved from wing back and got put up front with Aubameyang in the second half, what did we get out of him?
Nothing. He was just ambling about. Look, he's not been good in the last few games at all.
You know, and I think it's great. As good as he is, I think he has to start because of this. It's the type of game we're playing in terms of Man United, and I think you want your best players on the pitch. And I think out of all of the forwards that we have, putting it in the back of the net, he will probably, if you give him a couple of chances, he'll be one of them that will do it eventually. But I'm not impressed with his whole attitude. Like at the moment, the way he's playing, I ain't. I think he's a bit. Again, even he looks a little bit reserved in his way. He's not running as much. He's like dawdling around sometimes on the pitch. He's not like really showing to the midfield or coming forward. And I don't know. And when he gets the ball, I want him to take players on, and he always wants to go backwards. I don't get this thing with players that come to Chelsea that are dribblers. Get the ball, they're one-on-one with a player, drag him to the wing. Something that I think Leao would do. You know, he would always try and take the player in front of him on. I don't think Sterling's doing that. You know, and maybe tomorrow's the game where he comes alive. It's a big game and whatever. And these are the games that you want your best players on the pitch. And maybe this is the type of game that wakes him up and he looks really sharp in that. But him and Aubameyang do look kind of good together at the same time as well. So I'd rather have him on the pitch. But yeah, he's not been great.
I mean, he's mad as well. I mentioned at the top of the show, Sterling has not scored a single goal against Man United in his whole career. 23 games. 23 games against United, hasn't scored one. 24th time lucky tomorrow, but I do agree he will start this game, and he probably does have this game just because of the caliber it is and the caliber of player that he is, even though he's not in the best of form. I mean, there's no way Potter's not going to start him, but do you think there is a kind of a strong shout for Christian Pulisic to play in this game?
The only way Pulisic gets in this team is two ways. Either Sterling don't start, which I don't see happening, and he plays Pulisic, Mount and Aubameyang. He does that, or we play with a 4 at the back, and then I think you'll have Sterling, Aubameyang, Mount, and Pulisic as your 4. That's
Yeah, this, but again, as you said, I don't like how. I don't think we. I'm not. I don't know if I like how we set up with a 4. I don't know. It's just for me, it's still not quite right. It's still missing a couple of ingredients for it to really fire. I mean, we saw. Do you think Gallagher's got a chance of starting? I personally don't think he will start, but again, he's a good option to have from the bench. A lot of energy in there in midfield, but I do agree he probably won't start. To finish, you going Aubameyang out? I mean, it's
got to be.
It's got. I mean, he's had a few games with Chelsea now. We've seen him get 3 and 3. It's gone off the ball. It hasn't scored the last couple of games. Admittedly, perhaps not had the most service and whatnot. What's your early assessment of him been? Because now that he's fit, he's not got the mask on anymore. What have you liked what you've seen?
I think if you create enough for him, he scores. I think he's clinical. That's something that we've seen. So if we're going to create in this game, I want Aubameyang up front for the chances when they land. You know what I mean? Because I do think he'll put them in the back of the net. However, I don't think he played well at Villa. He just disappeared that whole game. He didn't look bothered. Yeah. He didn't look bothered, or he looked tired, or whatever it was. He was the same as Sterling. And then he came on Brentford, and we looked different with him on the pitch. He was, one touching, linking up, running behind. He looked sharp, didn't he? I was thinking, maybe we should have bring him on 20 minutes earlier. But yeah, I think for this game, Aubameyang has to play. You need, we moan about goals being put in the back of net, and if we're going to create chances tomorrow, I want to make sure we've got someone that can put it in the back of the net. Right? So I think Aubameyang has to play for me in this game.
He does have to. I mean, looking at that there, if that was tomorrow, I mean, do you think we've got enough creativity in that side? Because essentially, unless you get a little bit from Chile, it's heavily reliant on Mount and Sterling to create stuff. As good as Kovacic and Ruben are in the middle, they're not exactly known for their creative ability.
No, I agree with that. But at the same time, they will break the lines and try and play balls forward in their own way, So it's a thing of you get Chilwell creating, you get Kovacic maybe doing it, further up the pitch, Loftus a little bit here and there. Aspie will whip balls in. It's just whether or not he'll clear the first man. He'll do something. It's not great. And then you've got Koulibaly, who we don't talk about enough, but apparently he's the in terms of his stats, progressing passes moving forward from a defender in the Premier League, he's top. He's the top. Yeah. He's top of every defender in the league for being progressive with the football. So he does it in a deeper way, but differently as well, moving us forward quicker. So, yeah, we haven't got a lot of creativity in here, mate. Let's be serious. Mount will do it. Chilwell will do it. Kovacic on the odd occasion. Aspie on the odd occasion. Maybe Sterling. There's not, little bits here and there from people, but no real standout Fabregas, is there? Or Bernardo Silva,
there's not, or even if you look at United, I mean, not on that same level, but I mean, Christian Eriksen, I think, has been a great signing for him. As Fernandes can, he's dropped off a bit, but he can still do that. So, I mean, I guess a big plus is that I know he wouldn't have started anyway, but no Ronaldo in the squad at all is, I suppose, a positive for Chelsea. In fact, that would have an impact coming off the bench. You'd imagine been used from the bench if the situation hadn't occurred. So I think that's positive. Let me just get to the chat before we run out. No, I wouldn't match up with a 4 as we explained. Right. It does the balance and the setup's not right for us. I think we look much better in a 5 with the personnel we've got at the moment. And to that one as well. We saw Carrera play left centre back against Villa, and it was not good. You can't do it, but it was poor. And in a game of you just don't want to go back. Carrera's going to play. He's going to play back in this game. Jem, out, mate. You're going. It's going to be a big occasion at the Bridge. Scoring. Are we going to get our first league against United since 2017?
Yes, we are. 2-0. 2-0. I'm going with 2-0. And I'm going to go over Aubameyang and Sterling to get his first goal. It's going to be perfect.
Yeah, I'd love us to keep a clean sheet. Ultimately, the clean sheet's not that important in the grand aspect of things, but I'm confident as well. I think we will win. I'm going to go 2-1. I think Sterling will get his goal. I'm going to go with... I don't know. I've got a feeling Thiago Silva might head one in from a set piece. I'm going to go to 2-1 win, though.
I'll go mad if Thiago Silva scored in the goal, mate. He's my favourite player, isn't he? You see that goal kit there?
Silver on the back.
Silver on the back, mate. That's the only one. I don't get names to the back of my kits, and he's the only guy I've got on my back of my kit. Silver. He's unreal.
I mean, this definitely isn't happening, but it's never.
Right, mate. I don't know what. Sometimes I wonder. Did you watch Chelsea this season? Honestly, some of the questions you're coming out with.
The
Jesus.
four is definitely not. Agree. We have touched on it. So it does need to be dropped.
Yeah.
Probably needs to be edited out. But this game, I'd be shocked. He just won't be. He just won't not start this game. But yeah, seems like a good point to round out, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in the chat. Jem, thanks for your time as always, mate. Guys, make sure you subscribe to Jem's channel, GNA TV, linked in the description below. He's on the road to 10K, not too far away, and follow him on Twitter as well. Both linked in the description there. For myself, please make sure you smash the like, subscribe to the channel on your way out if you haven't already. On the road to 2K, not far now, so every subscriber helps. Please do smash the likes. Mate, enjoy the game tomorrow, guys. I'll be back tomorrow with reaction after, so make sure you tune in for that. But until then, enjoy the rest of your weekend and the Chelsea.
I'm Chelsea.